Good evening. We're going to get started. All right. Thank you so much for coming for tonight's keynote. To start us off, in recognition of Squaxin Island territory and in recognition of the people on whose land that we stand, we've invited Joe Seymour in to do the opening for us tonight. So, Joe.
I'll be opening this event, this evening's event, with a song from the Green family from Nia Bay. So if you could please stand. Yo, hey, yo, hey, oh, yo, hey, yo, hey.
Thank you so much, Joe, for that wonderful opening. We're very honored to have Joe be able to work with us. He is a student here at Evergreen as well as a talented artist, and he is an intern here at the Longhouse. And so he always does a great job for us. So my name is Christina Ackley. I teach in Native American Studies here at Evergreen, and I would like to welcome you to our concluding event for the Evergreen portion of the second Indigenous Climate Justice Symposium. Tonight's event concludes our on-campus Evergreen events, and then there will be some events that are going on with our partners, the Nisqually Nation. They'll be doing some things on Saturday and Sunday. But we hope you were able to take advantage of some of the wonderful speakers that we had on Thursday, as well as earlier today. And if you weren't able to come and this is your first time here, welcome. For those of you that have been here, welcome back. Been very, very I've been alternately concerned, excited, outraged, energized, hopeful, all sorts of different emotions while I listened to the different speakers and topics that have been presented here over the past 2 days. But I think one of the things that I'm really excited for is certainly the youth that have been very interested in these issues, as well as really seeing Evergreen students really rise to the occasion. And our students in our program that Zoltan Shangri-La and I teach, the Catastrophe Community Resilience in the Face of Disaster program, have really done a great job. Been here, some of the students have been here since 8 o'clock in the morning till after 9 o'clock at night. We've had some students that have been in the hospitality room all day, keeping food for speakers and things like that. So I just wanted to give a hand to our Evergreen students for helping out with this event. And also, I just wanted to also acknowledge our last panel, which was a student panel. We had a graduate student and 2 undergraduate students that did really awesome, wonderful work. And I'm really excited because the work that they were presenting is not finished. It's work that they're will be still working on. And so it's exciting to see scholars at that point in their pathway and their career to be able to really rejoice in the path that they are on. At Evergreen, since we have an open curriculum, which means that we do not have certain requirements to do, say, a political science degree or environmental science degree, it's really up to the students to create a pathway that works for them to reflect on their education and then to translate that to an outside audience. So I think these skills serve them well in facing some of the challenges that we see today and that certainly have been presented around issues of climate justice. So it's my great pleasure to introduce a student tonight who will be taking over in a minute. Again, this idea of really trying to put students forward in these events, really trying to give them some of the skills and tools to be able to do some of this work. So Jenny Whitfield will be introducing our speaker, and Jenny is a student here at Evergreen. I've known Jenny in a couple of capacities. She was in a program where she took on extra effort. So she took a full-time program with us, and then she decided that she also wanted to do an extra Friday was it afternoon or all-day event? I can't remember, but certainly it was a whole Friday afternoon, sometimes into the evening, to carve a model canoe. And so she was one of only a handful of students that took on that extra project, in addition to the work that she was doing in the program, which really showed her commitment. Jenny has also served as a student representative to a campus-wide hiring committee, which I think if anyone has ever done that sort of administrative work, first of all, it can be challenging, but it's also very challenging for students with full-time coursework as well as full-time job. And so Jenny has done that really well. And I just have to also say that Jenny is a wonderful companion to have in a college van when you're driving around on a field trip and you're not sure you're on the right road and there's no cell service and you're driving for at least an hour, not sure you're on the right road. You don't see anybody else around and there's absolutely no cell service. So Jenny was by my side, didn't really help all that much, but really talked quite a lot about the idea of, Christina, I really think I'm getting a signal. She had a great faith in her phone. So, but it all ended up well. It didn't turn out we were on the right road, but it was a funny thing to happen. So I'd like you to give a warm welcome to Jenny Whitfield.
Aloha mai kākou. Mahalo. O wau o Mahialani haupu ko inoa. Chief Reuben George is a member of the Tsleil-Waututh Nation in North Vancouver, British Columbia. After serving his nation as Director of Community Development, he shifted his focus to protecting Burrard Inlet, traditional Tsleil-Waututh territory, from the proposed Kinder Morgan pipeline and tanker project. as part of the Tsleil-Waututh Nation's Sacred Trust Initiative. Reuben George is also a spiritual leader and was made a Sundance Chief by Chief Leonard Crow Dog in South Dakota. Former medicine man for the American Indian Movement, sometimes called Chief of Chiefs. Reuben has become one of the best-known voices in the media in Canada and internationally in the conservation about proposed Kinder Morgan pipeline and related issues. If you would join me, it is my honor to welcome Chief Reuben George.
Can we play that? The video first?
We're coming on the air with a story we have had to report far too many times. Another school shooting, this one taking place in Marysville, Washington. You can see the pictures that we've seen too many times before, kids running from the classrooms.
They're requesting you to the cafeteria, scene is secure. We have about 6 patients and still trying to find out the status of those patients.
When you have somebody close to you die and you don't know why. You know, you ask questions about your humanity, you ask questions about how you are as a person and what your morals are.
Let's give a hand for that movie. Hey, CM, Hajka, CM, CIA, Chief Skluts, Nansnat, Tislewatu, Chief Yopan, Nansnat, Tislewatu, Squamish. The shooting that happened in Tulalip, there was some of my nephews and nieces that were all involved with that, but what you don't see and what you don't know is after that triggered a lot of disasters that happened in that community, not just in the reservation, but with the neighboring community. 22 kids died in less than a year. And it was so devastating, like not just to my son, to my daughter, who knew every one of those kids, but to the whole community. And it was so heavy that, you know, my son, he shares the story, but he started drinking and he started doing drugs, and he didn't know how to cope with so much loss. And it's sort of terrifying call. He called me and he said, "Dad, if I stay here, I don't think I'm going to live." He goes, "Everyone's dying." He goes, "Come get me. Come take me home." So I went and got him, and I took him home, and we did all those things that he grew up with our longhouse and our cold water bath and our sweat lodges and our pipe ceremonies. And, you know, and he started to grow from that disaster. And even though he was doing those things, I said, we need to do something for him. And somehow, one way or another, I talked him into coming to the Alberta Tar Sands. Like he heard him saying yesterday, it's the biggest industrial project in the world. Canada's population is less than California and New York, but we're the third worst country that's polluting the world more than any other country, and that's because of the Alberta Tar Sands. What you don't see in the video, but we'll put in the movie, is that there was a hill. It was about at this angle, and it was about 300 yards. And it's like a little mountain. They put it there, and it was about 30 kilometers, so about 23 miles long. And that's so you wouldn't see what's on the other side of the tar sands. We got there, and every quarter mile there was police and police stations, and they pulled us over. So what are you doing? And we said, we're checking things out. And they saw all the film camera equipment and said, "What are you filming?" I said, "We're just nature." But they followed us. We're there for about 2 hours trying to see if there's an opening where we could get up and go get some shots. And the opening opened up, and we jumped out, my friend and I, and Cedar was driving, and we ran up. We hid in the bush because the police were chasing us, but we made it there, and we took some shots. And my son said it was like Mordor, Lord of the Rings. It was. Hundreds of miles of just nothing. The size of Texas, that's what they want to move. It takes 3.5 barrels of water to get 1 barrel, 2 tons of earth to get 1 barrel. They're getting 2 million barrels a day. And they want to triple that. Kinder Morgan, they make $50 million a day. Their operation costs are 40%. And their payouts to taxes, landowners, First Nations is 10%. So it's 50%. They're making half of that, 25 million a day. Times that by 13 pipelines. Oh, sorry, they're making 8 more pipelines. Times that by 20, that's $500 billion a year. $500 billion a year. And here in the United States, they spend $1 trillion annually on fossil fuels. So you look at just the oil is a quarter of that. And no, half of that, sorry. And so, you know, we look at the government and what they say it's for jobs. You know, it's wrong. It's wrong. You build a super Walmart, there's more jobs there that are permanent. And they say it's for economy. I'll get into it later. We did a study with economists based on our culture saying that it's not good for our economy. It's good for the pockets of those shareholders. And I went to Kinder Morgan, their AGM meeting down in Houston, Texas, and I told them that. I'll get into that later too. I talked to Richard Kinder of Kinder Morgan, and I told him it's not happening. And but anyway, we went to the Alberta Tar Sands, and I thought it was really important for my son to see and myself to see again. And we ended up talking to a lady. And she said, somebody said, "Show him." And she rolled up her sleeve all the way up to her arm, and there's blisters all over. They said, "Show him more." And she pulled up her pant leg and rolled it up to her knee, and blisters all the way around. She said, "This is how cancer starts." And she said, my children, 4 years old and 2 years old, had cancer. She said, I was in the hospital, but I saw you guys on the news, and I wanted to come and tell you what happened so you could share it with the world. She said, my kids are getting treated for cancer. She said, my parents are dead. My husband's dead. Everyone's dying. And she looked at us and said, can you help? Can you help? And you heard Cedar say yesterday, you question your humanity. What you can do, what you can't do, what you could stand for, what you could believe in. And we said, damn right, we'll stop them. We'll do whatever it takes to stop them. I promise you that. And we're holding water like this. And she said, that's the only way I could bath my kids, and that's the only thing we could drink, because it's all polluted. So the people are dying. Right there, the highest concentration rate of cancer is can you show some pictures? Is in all of Canada is the community that lives right there at the Alberta Tar Sands. You can see a little truck that's 5 stories high. That little truck there's 5 stories high. They're moving the earth. And then the process, they're killing the people, they're killing the land, they're killing the water. You know, even when they eat traditional, they have to send the liver in of the elk or moose that they hunt to get it tested to see how much cancer's in it. I seen pictures that I'll show you later of a fish that had a cancer cell the size of a golf ball on it, and everything's dying. It's so devastating, and so that's what changed my son's life. He did grow up culturally. He did grow up spiritually. We did have those things in his life, but when those things happen, sometimes you need a little bit more to show you the way. And I'm lucky for him, he had culture, he had spirituality, but I get worried for our own communities that we live in. And I look at the education system, how it's failing. My daughter was lucky, she was able to read she gets mad, and I'm lucky she's not here because I could brag about her a little bit. But she read a 400-page book in 2 days when she's 10 years old. And she got put in a private school, and I started to see the differences. And the difference was the highest aspiration they teach in a public school when I used to work there was for people to be doctors and lawyers. And I started to see in these private schools, they're teaching them how to be millionaires and billionaires and politicians. When she went to Running Start and she started college when she was 16, she said all those kids started college as well, and all of them were taking political science or business. They start to know and do what they're capable of doing, and they don't care who they step on or who they hurt to get there. And neither does the government. It's the same thing. And you look at it when you're making $1 trillion a year the United States spends on, that money goes somewhere. If you look at countries like Portugal, they charge 80% tax. They don't have education problems. Universities paid for in some of these countries that pay tax to make fossil fuels pay tax like that. Not only do we give them minimal amount of tax, we hire them to create policy for this country, and they break policy like the Exxon Valdez up in Alaska or like the BP spill. The Exxon Valdez, you seen that on the news 20 years ago when they're spraying the shorelines with this white soapy substance. Every one of those people, hundreds of them got sick. Every single one of them got sick. They started suing that company. They postponed the court date. They did what they had to do to not pay compensation because there'd be millions for killing those people. All those people got sick. They're all dead. They didn't have to pay any compensation. True story, Exxon Valdez. 20 years later, it's still a devastating big mess up there that never would change. And I'll talk about this a little bit later, but this is an environmental assessment of Kinder Morgan based on our cultural and our spiritual beliefs. Our cultural and our spiritual beliefs backed by science. 1,200-page document that shows proof that 1 million people will get sick in 2 hours in Vancouver. 500,000 birds will die within a couple hours in Vancouver. Not let alone down here. 24 hours it'll be here. The oil will be here. Our studies show that there's 92, it said 87%, but we did a little work on it. It's 92% chance of an oil spill happening. It's not if, but when. And they don't, like I said, the government, they create the policies. Stephen Kelly was hired by Kinder Morgan to put in 20% of their application to the National Energy Board, which is a branch of Canada that approves or disapproves pipelines. And they never disapproved, and I used to say that when I first started to work, never ever disapproved the application for an oil pipeline. And then they made up this mock pipeline and they disapproved it. Now I have to say they disapproved one. But anyway, Stephen Kelly, working for Kinder Morgan, put in 20% of the application into the National Energy Board, was hired by the National Energy Board. And that's what happens, not just in Canada, but that's what happens here. But when we're blind and we're doing what we're capable, we're told what we're capable of doing and not questioning the system and not questioning our own belief, then we let these things happen. We're blind and they're leading us, and they're going to lead us to what's righteous for them, not for us. Can we go to my PowerPoint now? When I met Richard Kinder, I went there twice in the last 2 years to the Kinder Morgan AGM. Where's my clicker? I went to the Kinder Morgan AGM, and the first time I presented, I said, the Canadian Constitution protects our Indigenous rights. I said, First Nations, we won 170 court cases against resource extraction in our traditional territory. That's 90% we're winning. I told all the shareholders in a room like this. I said, we're going to beat you. You're done. And then I left. And then 3 months to that day, their stock fell by 60%. Their dividends were cut by 75%. So I went back a year later and I said, I told you. I said, I told you, and back. Tell you again. I said, make sound investments. I said, look at Elon Musk's company, the Tesla car. His company outsold the outsold the oil industry in its first quarter. I said, make sound investments in where you're spending your money. I said, think about where you're going to spend it. And Richard Kinder, he said, Reuben, we try to talk to you. We try to talk to Tsleil-Waututh Nation. We try to work something out with you. I said, it's not my duty and responsibility to talk to you. You're only a company. I don't need to talk to you. It's nation-to-nation negotiations that happens in our traditional territory. We need to talk to Canada. And you know what, Richard? I said, because they didn't talk to us, we're suing them. And we're going to sue you too. And he threw his hands in there and goes, go! Leave! Go talk to Canada! And I smiled and I said, yep, see, he knows. He knows you're done. He wouldn't freak out like that if he believed in. And I said, you're done. And but that was, I like that. I really liked that moment. So that's my grandpa. He taught me, like my Auntie Faith, my Uncle Phil, and a lot of my spiritual teachers. I'm lucky to be so rich to have so many beautiful teachers. Taught me to have a reciprocal, loving relationship to the lands and to the water. And my grandpa did that. I have a cousin, I was about 4 years old, and this is one of my earliest memories that I remember so vividly. We were going out in the ocean, and the tide went out really far, about 300 yards, and we'd walk up there and we'd pick up Dungeness crab and clam and oysters, and it was abundant with just a lot of beautiful wildlife. And my cousin would come by and he'd say, this is a rock crab. This is the ones that we don't eat. We eat the Dungeness crab. And he said he showed me all the species of fish and told me stories behind it and legends behind it and how to catch them. He would look at the imprint, and when the tide starts going out, the crabs get scared, so they burrow themselves in the mud so the sun doesn't kill them. And he goes, look, you could see it. And he said, be really careful when you flip it over, because if you flip over from the front, it'll pinch you. And he goes, look at the back, and this is how you tell. And he flipped it, and he picked it up, and I went, cool. And he goes, let's go eat it. And I go, okay, let's go to my house. And he goes, no, right on the beach. We'll make a fire. And I went, really? It's so beautiful, and it was amazing. But that was the beginning of planting the seed for me to have a reciprocal relationship to spirit. And then later on in life, we started building canoes. You know, my brother, he built a canoe once. It just freaked me out. In 1 week, he built this racing canoe. In 1 week, just carved it out, and he just sewed 12 hours a day. But we'd race in them, and we'd do competition in them, and later in life, we started doing ceremony in them. You know, I was taught that when we'd go to the cold water, and we'd raise our body temperature, and we'd jump in. I never felt so clean from a ceremony like that. And I started learning that from the sweat lodge. You know, and I started learning those stories that go with it. Like anybody, my teachers say, anybody could take water and pour it on hot rocks, sauna. Anybody could do that. But you learn to develop a relationship with it. And I went picking lava rocks with my daughter to heat up the sweat lodge. And I did a prayer, prayed, and I looked at her, and she's little, and I said, go ahead, pick up a rock now. She looked at me. I said, go ahead. And she gave me a stern look and said, Dad, I'm picking the right one. Not, oh, I'm sorry, you're right. But in her heart, she knew that somebody was going to heal from her action of picking the right one. I said, oh, so beautiful, so beautiful. And then we'd bring them and we'd build the lodge, and my mom would help. And she put tobacco in every hole where the posts went down. And we'd start bending the poles over, the willow over, and we used vine maple. And that was symbolizing that the family you built it would tie our bonds together and be closer. And you know, that's a ceremony. Getting the rocks is a ceremony. Make a fire. That's a ceremony. Uncle Lee Brown would say, before you light the fire, make a little tiny longhouse or a teepee and light it. And that represents you lighting the light that you carry, which is your spirit. Then we'd bring in the rocks and we'd sing songs. We'd lay down medicine. But all those things encompass that idea of a prayer that you hear all over in our language. It's Natsamat. One heart, one mind, one prayer. All my relations, Ometakiase. It's bringing all the relations together, but that starts to introduce the idea of every thing being interconnected from that ceremony to getting the lava rocks, to putting down the post, to tying them together, to making the fire, to singing the songs, to saying your prayers. Encompasses that idea and starts to create that idea of having a reciprocal relationship, of pouring water on rocks and bringing out the spirit and recognizing your own spirit. That's what my grandpa taught me. Recognizing our own spirit. Having an intimate relationship to our ancestors. An intimate relationship to Creator. And you know, as a parent, when I met Richard Kinder, there's nothing there. My teachers say, as soon as drugs or alcohol touch inside of you, your spirit leaves. And I've seen that with some of my relations when they're my own brother. When I go visit him downtown and try to spend time with him, and I could see there's nothing there. When I met Richard Kinder, there's nothing there. There's nothing, no spiritual belief. So what we do is we did a referendum in our community, and we had to tell people in my community in a hall like this. We said, well, if we negotiate with Kinder Morgan, we could get hundreds of millions of dollars. We're not a rich nation by any means, but we said, if we say no, we could fight them with a little bit of the resources that we have. And I said, we're going to vote on it. And my mom stood up and said, you know what, we're going to vote on nothing. So all you guys are going to, women are going to, children, everyone's going to stand up and you're going to warrior up. She said, you're going to warrior up and you're going to vote no. And everyone voted no. So we made a t-shirt out of that. Cedar was wearing it yesterday. It said, warrior up. In our language, ta'a means grandma, and said, because ta'a said. We saw that shirt in the march in Paris. We saw it in Washington, D.C. My mom phones me, goes, look, my shirt's over there. It's just like, show me pictures. But we voted and we said no. because my community knows, even though some might not be practicing like I might practice my culture and spirituality every day to build up the reciprocal relationship, they still have it. Minister Oliver, Environmental Minister of Canada, that was through the Harper government, which was way worse than Trump because he's actually a smart guy. And he's methodical, but he had the environmental minister, and he said, why don't the First Nations take the money? They need it. And I said, yeah, we do. Statistically, my people are only 5% of Canada's population, 4%. But we're 40% of homeless, 40% of school dropout. We're in those ugly statistics still. So we probably would need the money, and it would help us heal. But one nation, my people, I love my people, rejected $1.6 billion and a vote of 1,000 people and a vote from Prince George, Central British Columbia, and Vancouver. The 1,000 people voted 100% consensus no. Can't put a price on our land. Can't put a price on our land and the reciprocal relationship spirit of what we have with it. That's why we do that. We're raised like that. But he said, why don't they take the money? And so my elder said, well, now that we said no, you got to explain to the people why we say no and what we're doing. So in the bottom center picture is some Roosevelt elk we brought to our traditional territory. And then we also asked our elders, so what do you want? And we said, we want things to be back to how it used to be, and we want our children to experience what we experienced. So elk haven't been there for about 100 years. We put them back in our traditional territory, about 27. Now we have about 300. I was talking to my friend Robert, his beautiful camera and film documentary, and he came up. Give him a wave, Robert. You, but up hams. But he came up to Canada a while back, and I was sharing that our salmon count for that river where we stayed at went down to 6,000 salmon for the whole year. Just our old ancient techniques of how to fix it, we started doing that, and we brought it up to 10 million in 10 years. Yeah. You know, I haven't eating anything out of the waters right there in the bottom left for about 30 years. But a year ago, we had our first clam harvest because we've been cleaning our inlet. First time in 30 years, we had a clam harvest, and we're having one on the day after an event we're having, May 14th, of Vancouver. Come and paddle and come be with us. Let's stop these guys. Let's expose them for who they are. So we did that, and we started sharing that story of why we're stopping them, and the truth. When the first time 7 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, we did a town hall meeting in Burnaby, which is the first suburb out of Vancouver, where that terminal is, the bottom left. Auntie, you're probably in that picture. She came out and paddled with my mom. They did a ceremony at the water. They're doing the same ceremony in May. But Burnaby, right there, is the town suburb across from us, and we did a town hall meeting and sent out 150 flyers, and 10 people showed up. We didn't stop. They told us we couldn't stop it, but it's now right to the point where we did a survey a couple of years ago, asked the simple question: do you support Tsleil-Waututh Nation and soon Canada for not consulting on the Kinder Morgan pipeline? 71% of Burnaby residents supported Tsleil-Waututh Nation. Yeah, 71%. And those are people who are educated on the true facts of the destruction it causes. And don't take my word for it. It's at your fingertips. All this destruction of this crap that they do and how they treat people and how they don't care, it's all there. Look it up. Just look it up. It's easy. Ask those questions and look it up on the internet. I told my kids, my son, I said, if you're going to spend 3 hours on the computer, spend one researching on what you need to do so you can speak, son. And they have. They really do. Apply themselves to that. So that's our traditional territory that goes almost to the border and up over towards Whistler and all throughout Vancouver. And we're winning land back. Vancouver, we've been a poor nation for a long time. And Vancouver's the most expensive place to live in North America. So the Canadian government said, we're going to develop this land. We've been in treaty talks with them because there's no treaty signed in British Columbia for 30 years. And they said, we're going to develop this land. We said, no, you're not. We're going to tie that up in treaty so long you're going to develop nothing. They said, oh, sorry, how about we give you 10%? My uncle then stood up and he ripped up the contract. He said, how about nothing? And he walked out. Nothing for you. And then they phoned that night and said, how about 40%? We didn't lift a finger. And that was 3 nations represented. And we didn't lift a finger in that. And we said, okay. And that was $1 billion between the 3 nations. And it's changing. Everything's changing now. We were the first nation across Canada to meet with the Trudeau government because we have the power now and we're doing it right. This assessment that I showed you is based on our cultural and our spiritual belief of our reciprocal relationship to spirit. Those are our laws. And those are the laws that they broke. And that's how we're going to make them accountable. Not only that, we did this assessment based on that. And I went to our chief and council and our elders and I said, why don't we do this for everything? Have our cultural and our spiritual teachings be the backbone behind everything we do, economic development. Because it scares us to get that money, and we don't want to be like the 1% own 90% of the wealth. We don't want to be like that. Let's make it even for everybody. Make it down to wage equality. Let's make sure economic development is going to run by those same cultural beliefs. Let's make sure our housing and everything's run on those same principles. And they said, okay. I was like, what? Awesome. Let's do it then. So it's really good that we're moving in that direction. So when the tide went out, the table was set. That's my grandma on the far right. Auntie, where we were at Kate's Park, that was right there, that picture, the far right. That's my granduncle there, his harvesting clam. All what I'm saying was the foundation that I needed, and that's what I teach my kids from when they're real little. Teaching them spirit, teaching them to be connected to their own spirit. My daughter, she got, I think, 24 invitations from universities asking her to apply. And she's holding them, and I was like, holy smokes, in my family, you're so smart. And she's like, yeah, Daddy, look. And I said, wow. She goes, but you know it's going to dictate my path. I said, yeah, you're holding it. And she looks at me again with a stern look. No, it's our spirituality. Holy, I cried. But I'm so proud of her, both my kids for believing in that, and my whole family for believing in that. So I talked a little bit about the Alberta Tar Sands and what it is and the devastation that they create. And there's a picture right there, before and after. The size of Texas. That's how much earth they want to move. They did a study 4 years ago, because a year ago the Fort McMurray, the biggest town to the Alberta Tar Sands, burnt down. The whole thing, 60% of it burnt down. It was on the news. It was just brutal. They have a story on it on Netflix. I haven't watched it because I think it's saying weird things, not true. But they did a study and it was simple. They said you're emptying out that aquifer. The aquifer supplies 20% of Canada's water. And you're drying it out, and horrible things are going to happen. And they said, like forest fires. And that's what happened. The whole city burnt down. And what's funny is it skipped the reservation in the traditional territory, but it burnt down the city and everything else. But it was devastating what happened. And as you can see with that fish, everything's suffering. Everything is. This is what my son saw that changed his life. To believe in something. And that's what we need sometimes, because, I look at Trump and I remember they had this one guy with a Confederate flag behind him, and he's scruffy clothes, scruffy yard, run-down car, run-down house. He's blonde hair, he's a white dude, and he's proud above it, said 40 years Republican. Then at the bottom it said, but I'm still poor. And that's the same as what I'm talking about. They're telling them what to believe in. They're telling them what to believe in so they could continue to get what they want, and that's what they want, and they don't care what price they're going to do that. And so when they're down and out like that, just like gangs, kids will resonate with gangs because they need something to believe in. Some people need something to believe in. And when Trump came along, he started telling people what to believe in, and that's where it got him. But it's for himself. I just thought to myself personally, not far from here, some white folks went and took over one of the admin buildings because they felt what was happening was unjust and they had a right to the land. And I thought, geez, if there's a really good partnership with the First Nations, the tribes there, and they talk to each other and work something out, like the Cowboy and Indian Alliance in South Dakota, and said, hey, not only are you guys got screwed, but we're getting screwed, let's work together and screw them. I really was hoping for something like that to happen, but it fell apart and it went crazy, and they, but it's turning into that, red, white, black, doesn't matter, we're all screwed. But not only that, but they are too. In the last 40 years, half the world's species of animals died. Half. In 40 years, in my lifetime. Half. Where it's going is not good. First time ever, Arizona's not going to plant anything. Ironically, Las Vegas, in 2.5 years, won't have enough power in Hoover Dam to service power to Las Vegas, ironically. And everything's changing. I travel a lot around the world, and some places, like I've been in Europe, I was surprised to see in Italy and France that on the back roads, half the groceries are on the shelves. We're spoiled here, and I can't believe you're more spoiled than us. You could buy 7 tacos for $5, and that's like, my cousin's going, oh, let's go get some. And I said, no, man. No, you probably get sick. No, it's a good deal. 20 minutes is like, I'll be right back. But we don't feel the effects yet, but it's happening. 3 years ago, they said the Salish Sea population is going to double in 8 years. That was 3 years ago. From when I lived here 15 years ago, when I first moved here, traffic wasn't too bad. Holy man, it's horrible. Seattle has one of the worst growing problems. And that's part of it, because people are moving from where it's too dry to where there's going to be moisture. And that's happening. They say the Middle East, all the refugees running out of there, that's more because of climate change than because of war. It's happening. But they feel the effects in those countries, and that's why Germany buys more solar panels than anyone else. That's why Portugal had 4 full days of nothing but green energy power for the whole country. Amazing. That's why they charge 80% tax to the fossil fuel industries. That's why. It's funny it's not funny, but it's right that they do that, because, like I said, university's free, medical, dental's free, and this is the richest country in the world, and your people will put out a mortgage to pay their medical bill. And I'm going off on a rant. Get into the opiates. 20% of homeless people are homeless because of the addiction of opiates. And you look at hemp, there's no drug in hemp, and that will eliminate the use of opiates. But again, it's the pharmaceutical companies that are dictating to the government on what they should say and how we should do it, and we're listening. When you're not doing anything, you're listening. Bottom line, and you're setting your own fate. We got the gun to our own head and we're pulling the trigger slowly. And that's happening. In other countries, it's evident. Here, we're spoiled, but it's coming. And when it comes, it's going to hit hard. Sometimes I hate knowing all the facts and ugly things that I know. I see a homeless person begging for food or money. I think, God, I give you 15 years and you're screwed. For real, a human being screwed. 15 years, I think. You have to do something about it. And the crazy thing is, we have the technology. I work for this company called Petrosip that could turn the tailing ponds 150,000 kilometers, 15 miles of shoreline at the Alberta Tar Sands, of the sludge that they use. We could clean it. We could use membranes and clean it. The fracking, we could clean it. You know those companies said when Petrosep went up there to talk to them at Alberta Tar Sands, 20 companies said, screw you. Pennies a liter it would cost. 30 tankers a year to 400. And they're big. They're big tankers. The Exxon Valdez is small, 1/3 the size. They're liars. When I met with Trudeau, and he didn't come to the meeting, but his cabinet, Minister Bennett, Minister Carr, I shook his hand and I held on to it. And I said, the worst kept secret in Canada is that you're going to make an announcement tomorrow to approve the pipelines. I said, are you going to break our agreement and approve those pipelines? And I didn't let go of his hand, and his face went really red. And he goes, all I could say, Reuben, is we're going to make the announcement before the date we set. And I said, so you're lying. You're a liar. He said, you consult and talk to First Nations. This was not consultation. I said, we'll sue you. He goes, do what you got to do. I said, I'll do it for you because in your future generations, because you're not going to make that choice. We'll make the choices for Canada because you don't know how. And I walked out, run right into a press conference, said, Trudeau, all of them are liars. I told him why. But this is, look how big they are. Studies over and over again. When I went and met with Trudeau, we gave him just a brief of our 1,200-page document based on our culture, on our spiritual laws of who we are as Tsleil-Waututh people, backed by science, 6 world-renowned scientists. We started, I couldn't believe the foresight of my family to start to measure the quality of our water 25 years ago, to do GIS mapping. So we started interviewing our elders and everybody 25 years ago to map out where you fished, where you ate, where you hunted. 25 years ago we started that, and we mapped out everything. So this is a place where we chopped off the heads of our enemies and put them on a pole and warned people not to come in. Then we backed it by facts. One of the guys in Captain Vancouver ship was going by in a boat and wrote in his diary, he said, there's heads right in this spot. Guess what? Right where we said. And we backed it. We backed it. 1,200-page document. We said, here you go. This is how we're suing you. I said, but that's not enough. I said, here's an 80-page document. Worked with a world-renowned economist. So it's not good for economy that you're taking the money and put it in your pocket and your buddies, that you made a political choice for your friends. 80-page document. Study. It's not good for economy. So we gave him the third document saying, 80-page document following up to the one we already gave him, 1,200, said the likeliness of a spill is 92%. Here's the facts why. And another document. You can't clean it. The best you could clean is 20%. You patent your bitumen oil to be slippery to go through the pipeline, and you won't even tell people what you made it slippery with, so we don't even know how to clean it up. So our estimate is we could probably clean up less than we're estimating. And I said, here it is. He said, you say it's good for Canada? You're lying. You say you could clean a mess and you're ready for it? You're lying. He said, it's good for jobs? You're lying. He said, we own a wind turbine company, the second best-selling one in Canada. He said, we know what kind of jobs it creates. They remember when they swindled Enron? That's how they got started, with a lie. And that was retirement people's money they stole. And that's what they bought Kinder Morgan with. Before I presented, it was worth $140 billion and minus 60%. And that was what I said earlier. But even with their buddies, they're thieves. I got to speak with a bunch of lawyers from Kinder Morgan. They're saying, we're having double-hulled ships and they're safe. And I don't know how I did it, but I had the clicker for the slide, and I put up my slide, and I put up that top right picture. That's a double-hulled ship that they said they're safe, and that's breached and broken and oil coming out of it. That was good. But, you know, they have a long... I think somebody did a presentation earlier. I believe there's 2.6 million miles of oil and gas pipelines in the United States, and there's 2.6 bills a day. And people call me and say, wow, there's spills happening all the time lately. And I said, no, you know what? It's been happening a lot already. It's just that you're being more aware. But they don't have a good track record. Those are the reservations in the purple there that are the pipeline. You can see the red line, but those are the reservations. 110 First Nations in Alberta and Canada signed Save the Fraser Declaration to oppose any fossil fuels going through our traditional territory. One of the chiefs said that's an unbreakable wall of opposition that will let no pipeline go through, and that's that right there. All my natives. Sorry. And that's right. You know, when I was a kid and talking about growing that reciprocal relationship to the land and water, we'd go out and it was abundant everywhere, and it's tainted now. Harvest medicines and teas and different types of herbs, it's tainted. I went up to Haida in mainland up by Alaska, and wow, I picked this licorice root. Like, it's all over here. You see the fern growing on the trees. You take a little bit of that root. It tastes just like licorice. But it's tainted here. I had a little piece there, and it was explosion of flavor in my mouth. I thought, wow. You know, not long ago, we lived rich. And it's been a long time. And I think we should go to that. Not only because of climate change, what's happening in North America, why people move here, but because it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Got to protect what we have and start to enhance it because we can, because we have. Little nation of 400 people, and we changed Vancouver that much. We could all do that. And we do that with little resources. We do that with our cultural knowledge to create our salmon count from 6,000 to 10 million. So when we presented to the National Energy Board, it was a 40-minute presentation, and we said, you know, this is ridiculous. How could we explain to you a 1,200-page document in 40 minutes? I said, we come here to rest and protest. So what my cousin did, and this is the backbone of this assessment, is he told the story of creation, of the first man, which came from a descendant of wolf. He got lonely and swam to the bottom of the inlet, Burrard Inlet, right in Vancouver, and picked up some sediment and came up to the top. And he's so exhausted, he barely made it to shore here. And he let go of that sediment, and he went to sleep, and he woke up, and that was a woman. Our direct lineage comes from that land and water, and so we started making our laws out of that, and there's lessons right there with that. Descendant of wolf. You know, wolf packs, the oldest one leads when they're going traveling. So he sets the pace. The matriarch and patriarch are always together, their whole life together. A lot of lessons come out just of that wolf. Then you apply it to that story, and that starts to create our laws of who we are, and that's what we incorporated into this assessment of who we are as Tsleil-Waututh. So when we told that in court, it was pretty neat, because he told that story, and since he told that story, he said, I have to sing the song. And when he sang the song, it was in a court like this. One by one, all the Tsleil-Waututh stood up and sang. But I told that story, so I'm going to sing one verse. Oh, hila, hila, oh, hila, hila, ha, hila. So that's the song they sang, and everyone stood up. When I talk about what people needed to believe in something, like things started to shift. You know, it wasn't that long ago. My mom is in Canada, is one of the few elders that I work with. I used to do family therapy for about 15 years, and my grandfather said, anything you learn in college and university about healing, there's a native teaching that says the same thing. And I built a reference library out of that and built a treatment center for youth out of that in my mid-20s. And I got good at taking any psychological lesson and translating it into native legends and stories and teachings. When I was in the National Native Indian Education Conference a while back in Hawaii, they had this Navajo teacher teaching science to all Native kids, and 80% were failing. He took the curriculum and changed it to be 100% Native theme, even in science. In 6 months, 80% were passing. Even kids with speech impediments, they found when they all sat together, all these teachers, kids didn't have speech impediment when they spoke their own language. So my grandfather, with that idea, I took the lessons of the psychological lessons and made them into native legends and stories and teachings, and created a model that got an independent assessment of it, and it was just perfect, she said. He said, not only are we helping people, but we're changing their lives forever. And Idle No More, and the lines of that was people breaking out and finding out who they are. Suppressed people. My people were at the highest point, 15,000 wiped out to 13. 13 to Tsleil-Waututh were left, and that was only 7 generations ago. Almost extinct. But what came with that was residential schools, segregation, and relocation. My mom's one of the few elders that could talk about the murders that she saw of 5-year-old little children killed by nuns and priests in residential schools. Starvation, the physical and sexual abuse, all those things that happen to break that spirit, to bury them. And I like what somebody said in Standing Rock. Said to try to bury them, but what they didn't know is they're a tree and they grew. But my mom, just like the Idle No More people, said, that's enough. Let's rise up and let's do something. But we need something similar, not just for the people, but there's some sort of trauma going on. It's easy in our communities to look at the people that are going through physical trauma, but what about the people that are spiritually traumatized that don't have that belief and end up being blinded in a different way? Blinded so much that a dictatorship like the governments that we're a part of in Canada and the United States are telling us what to do and what to believe in. That's what's happening, and we need a national Idle No More for our country, not just for the Indigenous people. So we started creating alliances, and it was easy because everybody wanted to work with one another. And even the mayor of Vancouver, he comes to ceremony. He came in when we were in Haida Gwaii. My friend from Australia, she came to visit us, me and my kids, and she's a good friend of ours. But she came to Haida Gwaii too, and the mayor of Vancouver was there, and he wanted to hang out, and we're roughing it a bit. He quit brushing his hair and grew a beard, and when it came to time to dance, he's out there dancing away and to the traditional songs, and you know, it was good to see. And the same with my lawyer. His Chinese and actually my 2 older brothers are part Chinese too, and he comes to ceremony. I don't ask him, don't make him. He asked, and I said, yeah. Start to understand why we're doing what we're doing and be a part of it. Nothing wrong with making good people better. My grandpa would say, if you're Catholic, Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, Catholic, whatever, just be good at it. Follow those teachings of humanity, of love and honor and respect and dignity, pride, compassion, understanding, truth, and knowledge and wisdom, and create it into your law for your own existence. And when you do and you create something like that, there's nothing standing in the way from you and I having a moment with one another. That could be a reciprocal relationship. You've all been in love. You love your kids, you love your parents, you love somebody special. That's a spiritual relationship that every culture around the world, when you love somebody special that you're in love with, it, you want to be a mate and be with them your whole life. It's called marriage, and every culture has that, to honor that. That's a spiritual relationship that we want to honor, that you know you're part of. But we could have that with one another if you believe in those fundamentals of humanity, of every religious and every cultural belief. Then we'll make better choices. We'll make better choices of what we should be and how we should do it, and dictate our own future, that it could be equal for everybody, not a 1%. Because they don't care if they're killing people. When I talked to them, I said, you're so entrenched in what you believe in. I said, you can't even make a choice for your own future generations. You're incapable of it. But you're part of the human race. And I care. Because I care, I'm going to make choices for your future generations. I'm going to stop you so your kids could have a future. Damn right. So Auntie, I'm going to share that story. She talked about the cowboy and Indian lines, but remember we gave them the name? The new CIA. The cowboy and Indian lines. But again, building up, the bottom right, the Salish Sea Treaty, that's Tulalip, Lummi, Yankton, Grand Chief of British Columbia, Grand Chief of Canada. In the center is Anti-Faith when we went to Ottawa. And again, that's the Yinkadine, Haida-Gwaii, Northern BC, Central BC, Haida-Gwaii Island. We're coming together. Top right is us signing the Save the Fraser Declaration. It's happening. I had a meeting just recently with about 20 chiefs, elected chiefs, and I said, what about the Assembly of First Nations? Should we invite them? And they said, no. Elder chief said, so, oh, okay. They'll just slow us down. We're already doing it. They're just going to slow us down and find a reason to negotiate, and we don't negotiate nothing. And I said, yeah, let's do it. That's true. And we are doing it. And we'll do it. And like my son said, we'll do it with anybody that wants to do it with us. And this was neat. The two mayors on the left, like Standing Rock, and people say, would it be like Standing Rock? I said, I don't know. When we have politicians like the two on the left that said they would lay in front of the pipeline and bulldozers and stop it. We have municipal, federal, and provincial leadership that would support the First Nations in stopping this. We have everyday people coming out. When my mom got arrested in Burnaby Mountain with the Grand Chief of British Columbia, it's funny that it's just ironic. One of the police, he used to live with my mom and I, and I remember we were whispering to one another, and I grabbed him by the scruff of his collar and I pulled him in. I said, take care of my mom. And he started crying. And he said he will. He said, I'll help you. But it's everyday people that know that affects them, and they're starting to learn the true facts of the destruction that it causes. They're waking up. And then when they wake up and they have no belief, they find something to believe in, and it's this, and it's police that are doing it too. It's funny. This is a funny story. There's a sort of a, I don't know if you remember Oka, when the nation stopped the development of a golf course on their territory, and it's a standoff against the Canadian Army, and they're shooting each other and everything. But there's one famous picture of this guy, Oka, and they're like about to fight. So I was I was talking to this guy, and the police, they're Canadian police, they're nice, and we're about this close to each other, and he's going, so I heard your mom's diabetic. I said, yeah. And he goes, we got some sandwiches and juice for her, so whenever she wants to stop and rest, we'll give it to her. But it looks like we're fighting, and we're just like, and it was on the front page of the paper going, Indians getting arrested, and it was so I didn't correct him. It was funny. You know, I started branching off on my own a little bit. I think it's always been a problem to go where I want, how I want, when I want, and work with who I want. We try to do work in South America, and it's hard to get there. In Panama and Brazil, and you know, I presented with a guy in Rio, and we went out for dinner, and he's like, you know, I'm risking my life, and I didn't. That's a while ago, and I didn't believe in him. Then I got home, and they messaged me and said he was killed, and Cedar met people too in Panama. When we had the chief, she stopped 17 projects. The whole country of Panama got behind this woman chief, and she stopped, and then Uncle Phil called and said, you need a protector. I said, you're a sun dancer? I said, yeah. I said, put your life there for her. I said, yeah. So they're trying to get her. I said, okay, and we stayed with her for 2 days, 48 hours straight, and made sure she's safe and made sure she's okay. Those countries are still killing people. Killing in Canada in a different way, but it's still brutal. It's still happening, but I see those devastating things, and so I branched off on my own a bit, and I work for a medicinal hemp company to raise funds for what we're doing in our own personal missions, because I love working for my nation. I think it's amazing, best place I ever worked. But there's other ideas that I want to do that are national and international, and we need resources for it. So I work for a hemp company and a lighting company. LED lights replace these ones that burn too much energy and make it more green. But Tsleil-Waututh has done the same thing. Like I said, we own a wind turbine company. Like I said, Elon Musk, first quarter, outsold the oil industry. Things are changing. Things are changing, and we have to get those people involved too, because if they're not part of the change and helping to create and enhance what they have by helping us who are on the front line, you know, and what we're doing is working. We're winning. Enbridge Pipeline, they're multi-billionaire companies, $180 billion. That's a lot of money, but they said you'll never win. They beat them. That's the one we went to Ottawa with them, Auntie, was those guys. We beat them. And it's so sweet that we had a fundraiser, and the chief came and said, we beat him, and you're going to beat him. I said, you came up and traveled with us and helped us. Now I want to help you. I said, we have money left in our account from our legal battle, and it's going to you. They gave it to us. But we're winning. We're winning. And in our ceremony, I don't compromise it. I don't change it. I've been doing it the way our ancestors have been doing it for thousands of years. I don't change how we grow that reciprocal relationship to spirit. You know, when I go to visit my kids, my son lives with me now, but when I go visit my daughter, get in my car, drive down to Tulalip, I'm happy already. She's going to feed my spirit. The land and the water feed my spirit the same way. When I go up to Haida Gwaii and I see the beautiful, pristine water, and I was like, I'm going to jump in. And they're like, it's cold. And I said, but it's ceremony, man. And they look at me, I'll jump in too. So we all jumped in, and the neighbors are like, we'll jump in too. No, I'm just kidding. But it's that beautiful relationship. And we don't compromise our ceremonies. We don't compromise our belief. We're not going to compromise our government. of who we are. We're going to make it equal and fair for everybody, for the elders, for the widows, for how it used to be. Haida was on the news. They invited me to come speak, and I think Squaxin Island, I know the beautiful work that you do to enhance your clam and oysters and geoducks. Just beautiful work that you do to enhance that. Yeah, give them a hand. You make this place beautiful because of your reciprocal relationship to Spirit. Raise my hands to you in thanks and gratitude for the beautiful things that you do. That reciprocal relationship to lands and to water, to continue our traditional ways. They could spend their money on something else and do something else, but they want to do that so the children could experience what we have experienced. But we don't compromise our love for our children, and I don't compromise my love for the land. Don't compromise my love for ceremony. And those are our laws. Yvonne Morales in Bolivia said, Mother Earth has the same rights as a human being. But they're so blind they can't see that. They're not part of that. But we're changing it. Change is coming. And we need to push that. We need a stronger voice. We need that faith and that belief. We need that prayer. I'm lucky my kids are healthy. That's my prayer every day. It's my kids be safe, be healthy. My mom, my family, my aunts, my uncles, Mother Earth. We need those things to continue that way. To Tsleil-Waututh community started this a couple of years back. 90% of that building is green energy. Our admin building's all going to be green. All of our houses are going to be green. We could do it. We're a small little nation that started a town hall meeting and 10 people showed up, to the point where we are today that we are the first nation in Canada to meet with the new Trudeau government and call him on his BS. We're moving forward and we're winning. A small little reservation that went to New York, Wall Street, and talked to $10 billion of that company, Goldman Sachs, and said, this is what's happening. They're killing people. They said, represent us in our AGM and speak on our behalf and tell all the shareholders how horrible this is. I said, take your money out of there. Small little nation went there, in their house, in their home. Said, that's enough. It's done. You're done. Because we have that faith and that belief and that spiritual drive, and we need to ignite it. In my ceremonial houses, my longhouse, and I'm glad this is a longhouse, and our sweat lodges. When we're comfortable, just like when you're comfortable with a person you love or your kids and you're going to get your spear fed, you'll walk out of that area and you'll feel good and you'll feel beautiful. In our ceremonies, we want the same thing for you. When you're comfortable, your spirit will expand to the size of this room. When you're comfortable, and your spirit, and your spirit, and your spirit, everybody will do that, and we'll bless one another. Then we'll do ceremony, and we'll call to honor your ancestors. They know you the best. They will listen to you. But when they come down, they'll bless me too. And my ancestors bless you, and all of your ancestors bless each other, and we walk away feeling better. That's what ceremony is. And we don't compromise that, because the power that we have is based on love. The power we have is based on those teachings of humanity, of love and honor and respect. And those are the things that create a warrior. A true warrior. And you're all warriors when you work from that place of love and create something good and beautiful that we deserve, a future we deserve, that our land and our earth deserve. Keep it like that, so what you're experiencing now, your experience will be even better because of the work that you did. Keep it the way now so the experiences that you had now, your children will have. Let's get to the point where we don't have to think and look at a homeless person and feel sad for them because in 15 years there's going to be not enough food and they're going to be the first ones to die. Let's don't get to that point. Let's share that love and that faith and that belief to do something, to believe in something, to let go those old idealisms of what the government tells us how to think and how to be, and be who you deserve to be and who you have a right to be. You have gifts. Connect to your own spirit, and when you find your gift, share it with me, and it will make us stronger. Share it with me and share it with each other. We need to come from all angles like they do to us. They're methodical. Let's be methodical with our love and send them those messages like I did. Say, you can't do it because you're so clouded by your greed. I'll do it for you. Can't make a sound choice. Told Trudeau and his government, said, you're not making the best choices for Canada, so Tsleil-Waututh Nation will, and all of our allies. Little nation that they said they couldn't, we are. And we won't do it alone. Hoich Kasiyam, thank you.
Thank you so much. We have time for a few questions, so a student here will be able to bring the mic to you.
It was neat. My son had his Facebook and his phone number, and he had those things like that, but I wonder if I do. Oh. Tsleil-Waututh Nation Sacred Trust. So Tsleil-Waututh, if you could write that down. Nation Sacred Trust. And of course, Reuben George and on Facebook. And Cedar George Parker, for sure. You know, one thing I do believe in the bigger rallies I've been around the world, Mexico, almost 1 million kids. Brazil, 500,000. Middle East had 1 million. You know, this movement, we need our youth. I really was praying and hoping that my son or my daughter would step it up, and they both did. They said, never going to do what you do. So I remember a funny story of Cedar. His mom and Uncle Phil called and said, you got to dress Cedar up. His representative, dress him up. And I said, no, he's resonating with people. Let's don't taint him. Let's don't change him. Let's give him the problem. Let him deliver it the way it's best, so he could resonate with people his age. I said, don't change him. Don't change him. And when we went with Trudeau's cabinet, we're all in suits, and he came out the way he's dressed, and I was like, oh. I said, no, it works. And it did work. It looked really good, but Tsleil-Waututh Nation Sacred Trust. Actually, and if you have questions too that I might not have time to answer, there's a part on the website that says, I think questions often asked, and then it gives a whole bunch of answers. And I think Haley was volunteering, and she's answering questions all day too. Sometimes we have live people. I think so. Thank you for the good question. And that's what I hope here. And that's sometimes why I talk about spirit, because with missing, if we're physical, we're spiritual, or mental, emotional. If something's missing in that medicine wheel, it goes wonky. But when spirit's missing, we could be guided in the wrong way, and we have been for a long time. And I think people are waking up and they're tired of it. And I see that all over the world. You know, amazing, beautiful ceremonies in Brazil. Holy smokes, and in Panama, and even in Europe, they're waking up. I talked to this blonde, blue-eyed elder, and he started talking to me about colonization. And it tripped me out because they took my land, they took our language, they took our culture, and I was like, what? And I was like, really? And it was true, and they did. It took Great Britain 2,000 years to colonize themselves and killed all the matriarch leaders and called them witches. And that's enough. We need our women to be our matriarchs. Like I'm happy to say, Tulalip, where my son's from, Deborah Parker is from that community, my kid's mom. Their whole council is women. To Tsleil-Waututh Nation, where I'm from, all of our chief and council are women, and we're going in the right direction. So there is a big wake, and I don't have a wife, but even in ceremony, my daughter has the rights to my ceremonial things, and she takes that serious now. If I'm too goofy in ceremony, I said my daughter Kaya has the look already, and she goes, what? She goes, no, I don't. And I went. But she could do it too. She's like, I was being goofy and sweating, I was being a little bit hard on people, and she's going, Dad, compassion. And I didn't listen to that, and she looks at me, I'm serious. And I was like, oh. I'll listen. But it's, I believe in that, and so things are changing. And like I said, though, we need the youth to do some soul searching and connect to your own individual spirit intimately, to your ancestors intimately, to Creator intimately. And I think this is a place to start. I love the individuality of the students here. It's celebrated. My son was grade 4, and he said, his principal called me and said, oh, Cedar made his teacher cry. And I, what? So I run down there, I said, what happened? And he started telling me, I said, no, and asking my son. He said, Dad, I'm not a robot. Just don't make me a robot. That may be me. They go to school, they eat at the same time, they do everything together. I want to be me. Don't make me a robot. And I looked at him and I said, that sounds good to me. So I took him out of that school. But anyway, but we need it to be youth-driven. We need, there's my daughter, I love you. And her guy friend. I'm just joking. It's her boyfriend. He's a good guy. He's a really good guy. But I sounded like Uncle Phil, didn't I? But yeah, I think what I was saying is the individuality of who you are, keep to it. Don't let them change you. Don't let them taint you. And start to question. Start to question your being, your life, your government, your world you're living. And spread it. You could do that here. I see it. I see your culture of what's created in this campus. I see how beautiful that is. Celebrate people that are different and that have gifts. Celebrate each other. We do that in our communities. We honor all the time. We honor life. We honor death. There's, people say coming of age and that ceremony just happens once, but we have multiple times where we honor people for changes in their life. We have to continue to do that and honor one another and find those gifts and move forward. And when we do that, and you quit being so blind, like what you're getting to, brother, people getting so blind, they're getting led the wrong way, and some big buffoon like Trump will come along and tell people what they want to believe in, and some people believe in it because they're blind. But at one point, enough is enough, and I think we're at that point, and I think you could start here. You guys do things. Same thing. Bring out, like, if you could focus on something, a branch of what you see that's unjust, like be creative, be methodical like they are. Like the next trip we're going to do is China. And we want to go there and tell them that, buying this dirty oil is killing people. And what kind of relationship do you want with Canada? And Trudeau and Christy Clark have been going, that's the leader of Canada and supposed leader of British Columbia. They've been going over there, and we want to do things like that too. So even talk to your mayor, talk to your city councillor, talk to your state representative, write them letters, talk to them and demand time, and make a media event out of it. Bring some media on and say, did they listen? No. Are they doing something about it? No. This is somebody that we voted in that's making the wrong choices. Something, just be creative what they're doing and support the Tsleil-Waututh Nation. Go to the website, be a member. I think we made close to $300,000, and I think we had about 150,000 donors. So if you could help out that way too, that's amazing that people would do that. Like, there's that Bernie Sanders did the same thing. And a whole bunch of individuals started giving, and I know we're going to win that way for sure. We're legally, like I said, 90% of our legal cases we're winning. But be creative and use your voice and challenge the system and bring out the true facts and tell them, say, you know what? You say it's for jobs. Anticipate what they're going to say. Oh, it's for jobs. Say, why are you lying? Say half of the money goes into the pockets of these developers, and 40% goes to operation and 10% goes to payouts of taxes. I said, you're making a lot of money. So we should tax you. Tax them. It's question those things and look it up. Look it up. Don't take my word for it. You can look it up. There's a question in the back. So thank you very much, though. We need your support. You know what? We'll win together. Yep, but one fight at a time. In Vancouver Inlet, we have the oil pipelines that we're stopping. We have oil tanks. We have jet fuel. We have gas. We have coal. You have uranium. We have chlorine. One of the ugliest things is how they make concrete. That's one of the worst things. So it's one fight at a time. But what I do see, and we're working together on this, and this might answer some of your question too, is we go at multiple different angles, and they come to us. It's beautiful. They come and say, what direction should we come from? And we talk to the city, and they're suing too. But we don't have to duplicate our court cases against them. Let's come at them from multiple ways, multiple directions. Because oil isn't the only thing. Coal, uranium, they're crazy. A ship was going out the Pacific, and uranium busted open, and come back and clean it in the inlet. And they said, no, you can't do that. And they just cleaned it out there, dumped it all in the ocean. But it's just crazy. But we can though. Every given moment, there's no less than 50 referrals given to my nation. And what a referral is if there's going to be construction in our traditional territory, they need our okay. So what happens is we do a dig to see if there's any historical remains there, and we do environmental assessment, which is, by the way, supersedes any municipal, federal, or provincial assessment by any government in Canada or anything. And we assess them, and we give them a thumbs up or thumbs down, and we make them abide by our laws. And they're pretty respectful around it, but there's bigger companies that try to force things through. And they force it through in different ways. The National Energy Board was created for them to approve. Then when we challenged them and we sued them, then they created this advisory committee, and they hired one of the chiefs. Oh, we got First Nations on here, but she worked for the company. And then they created another advisory committee, and we're like, what are you doing? Why do you think you could pull the wool over our eyes? We're going to expose you. But here's a problem too, though, is we don't, the newspapers are owned by a guy named Blackwell, and he proposed a pipeline. He's the media. So the same down here is the same up there, that there's a picture of me holding like this, and I think we got 50 million views worldwide, but nothing in Canada, nothing in the United States. Al Jazeera picked it up. South American National News was picked up in Cuba. It was picked up in, our friend saw in England, but nothing here. So we need the people power like Bernie did. We need to our social media, like Cedar's saying, he and my daughter, they both know those things to send out those messages. And we have to get aboard and send those messages out too. I rambled on. Did I answer your question? What was it? No, I'm just kidding. So when I was talking here today, I came up with a little quote. It says, "When we are blind and cannot feel our spirit, we'll be led further, suppressing our own gifts." So thank you again. Hoichikasiem.